The shot echoed across the range, and Emma Vance did not flinch. She had heard that sound 10,000 times in 100 different places, some of which did not exist on any official map. The man 3 lanes over, however, flinched. He lowered his rifle and turned to stare at her target. Emma did not need a look. She knew exactly where the round had gone. Center mass. Always center mass. What she did not know was that her quiet Saturday morning was about to become very complicated. The Montana sun climbed higher over the Pine Ridge shooting range, casting long shadows across the outdoor facility. Emma adjusted her stance, her body remembering rhythms burned into muscle memory through years of training that most people could not imagine. She was 43 years old, average height, with the kind of quiet presence that made people forget she was in the room, that had always been useful in her previous life. In this life, in this small town, 2 hours from anywhere that mattered, it was exactly what she wanted. She chambered another round. The rifle was nothing special. A standard civilian AR-15, bone stock, the kind you could buy at any sporting goods store. Emma did not need custom builds or exotic modifications. She had learned long ago that the weapon mattered far less than the person holding it. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat steadied. The world narrowed to the target 200 yards downrange. The shot broke clean. Another perfect hole appeared in the center of the target. That was when the man from 3 lanes over started walking toward her. Emma saw him coming in her peripheral vision. Mid-30s, athletic build, moving with the kind of swagger that suggested he thought highly of his own abilities. He wore expensive tactical gear, the kind that looked impressive in photos but had never seen actual field use. His rifle was a custom build, probably $5,000 worth of upgrades and accessories. Emma had seen the type before, many times. He stopped at the edge of her lane, a smile on his face that did not quite reach his eyes. "Excuse me," he said. "I could not help but notice your shooting. Pretty good for someone who probably does not get much range time." Emma kept her expression neutral. She had spent years perfecting that particular skill. "Thank you," she said simply. The man extended his hand. "Derek Holbrook. I am an instructor here. Former Army Ranger. I run the advanced tactical courses on weekends." Emma shook his hand briefly. "Emma Vance." Derek glanced at her target again, then back at her rifle. "You have got decent fundamentals," he continued, "but I can see a few things in your stance that could use some refinement. I train under Mike Chun, you know. The guy is a legend in the SEAL community. Best sniper instructor in the business. He taught me everything I know about precision shooting." Emma felt something shift in her chest at the name. Mike Chun. She knew Mike. Knew him very well, in fact. But she said nothing, just nodded politely. "Before we go further," Derek said, "let me ask you something. Where are you watching from today? I mean, where are you from? We get shooters from all over Montana, sometimes from Wyoming and Idaho too. Always interesting to see how different regions approach firearms training." Emma considered the question. "Cascade County originally," she said. "Been living in Lewis and Clark County for the past few years." Derek nodded appreciatively. "Good country for shooting. Anyway, like I was saying, if you want, I could give you some pointers. Mike taught me this technique for breathing control that completely transformed my accuracy. Most civilian shooters never learn it properly." Emma chambered another round, her movements smooth and economical. "I appreciate the offer," she said quietly. "But I am good." Derek laughed, a sound that carried more condescension than humor. "Look, I get it. Pretty good. But everyone can improve. Even people who think they are pretty good can benefit from professional instruction. I have been doing this for 15 years. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about." Emma lined up her next shot. The target was still at 200 yards. She adjusted for a slight breeze that Derek probably had not even noticed. Her finger found the trigger, steady and sure. The shot broke. Derek pulled out a spotting scope, training it on her target. His expression shifted just slightly. "That was a good shot," he admitted, "but I bet I could show you how to tighten that group even more." Emma lowered her rifle and finally turned to look at him directly. "Derek," she said, using his name for the first time, "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I'm just here for some quiet practice. I'm sure your students benefit greatly from your instruction." Derek's smile hardened at the edges. He was not used to being dismissed, Emma realized, especially not by a woman who looked like someone's quiet aunt. "Tell you what," Derek said, his voice taking on a challenging edge. "Why don't we make this interesting? You and me, little friendly competition. Nothing serious, just a few shots. If I win, you take one of my courses. If you win, well, I will buy your ammunition for the next month." Emma considered the offer. Every instinct she had developed over 2 decades of military service told her to decline, to avoid attention, to stay in the background where she belonged. But she also recognized the type of man Derek was. He would not let this go. Better to handle it now, quickly and cleanly, than to have him hovering around her every time she came to the range. "All right," she said quietly. "One competition. Then we both get back to our own practice." Derek's smile widened. "Now we are talking. Let me go grab some targets and set up something more challenging than static paper. You're going to learn something today, Emma. I guarantee it." As he walked away toward the range office, Emma allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Mike Chun. Derek had trained under Mike. Mike was good, very good in fact. One of the best she had ever worked with. But what Derek did not know, what he could not possibly know, was that Mike Chun had not always been the legendary instructor. Once, years ago, Mike had been a student, and Emma Vance had been the one who taught him everything he knew. She looked down at her rifle, then back at her target. The grouping was tight, professional, unremarkable to anyone who did not know what they were looking at. But Emma knew. Every shot exactly where she had intended it. Not because of luck, not because of natural talent, but because of thousands of hours of training in places Derek Holbrook had never been and hopefully would never go. Derek returned with an armful of equipment, his expression eager. "This is going to be fun," he said. "Just wait until you see what real precision shooting looks like." Emma said nothing. She simply checked her rifle, adjusted her stance, and waited. The morning sun continued to climb, and somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried out as it circled on thermal currents. It was a beautiful day, a peaceful day. Emma suspected that peace was not going to last much longer. Derek set up the competition with the enthusiasm of someone who had already won. He positioned fresh targets at varying distances, attached timers to the firing line, and gathered a small crowd of morning shooters who had been practicing at other lanes. Emma watched him work, noting how he played to his audience, making sure everyone understood that he was the professional and she was just another amateur about to learn a valuable lesson. The range owner, Tom Briggs, emerged from the office to see what the commotion was about. He was in his 60s, lean and weathered, with the kind of quiet competence that came from decades of experience. Former Marine, Emma guessed from the way he carried himself. She had developed an eye for these things. "What have we got here, Derek?" Tom asked, his voice carrying the flat accent of Eastern Montana. "Just a friendly competition, Tom." Derek gestured toward Emma with casual confidence. "Emma here thinks she can shoot. I'm going to show her what real precision looks like." Tom looked at Emma, his eyes sharp and assessing. She met his gaze calmly, saying nothing. Something flickered in his expression, recognition of something he could not quite place. He had seen a lot of shooters over the years. Emma was betting he had not seen many like her. "All right then," Tom said slowly. "Keep it safe. Follow range rules. And Derek, try not to embarrass your students too badly. Bad for business." Derek laughed. "No promises, boss." Emma stepped up to the firing line. Derek had set up a course that required shooting at 3 targets, each at a different distance. 100 yards, 200 yards, and 300 yards. 5 shots per target timed. Closest grouping wins. "Ladies first," Derek said with exaggerated courtesy. Emma checked her rifle one more time, a habit so ingrained she barely thought about it anymore. Chamber clear. Magazine seated. Safety on until ready. The same checks she had performed in mountains of Afghanistan, in deserts of Iraq, in places that did not have names on maps. Derek saw it as nervousness. Tom saw it as something else entirely. She stepped to the line. The world got quiet in the way it always did before she shot. The small crowd behind her faded. Derek's commentary became background noise. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Timer started. Emma raised her rifle. The first target was simple, almost insultingly so. 100 yards, static, no wind to account for. She fired 5 shots in steady succession, the rhythm of it as natural as breathing. Each trigger pull was a surprise break, exactly the way she had taught it to dozens of students over the years. Exactly the way she had taught Mike Chun. Target 2, 200 yards. Slight crosswind from the west, maybe 5 miles per hour. Emma adjusted without conscious thought, her body making calculations that had become automatic years ago. 5 more shots. Perfect cadence. No ruse, no hosetaschen. Target 3, 300 yards. Here's where most shooters struggled. Distance magnified every small error, every tremor, every breath at the wrong moment. Emma settled into her stance, found her natural respiratory pause, and fired. 5 shots that sounded like a slow, measured heartbeat. Time, Derek called out. He was trying to sound casual, but Emma heard the edge in his voice. He had been watching through his spotting scope. He had seen where her rounds were landing. Tom walked downrange with binoculars while Derek stayed at the line, his expression shifting from confidence to something more guarded. The small crowd waited, a few of them checking their phones, already bored with what they assumed would be a predictable outcome. Tom returned and handed the binoculars to Derek without comment. Derek looked, his jaw tightening. "That is a good group," he said finally. "Real good, but let me show you how it is done." He took his position, and Emma had to admit he was skilled. His form was textbook perfect, probably because Mike had beaten the fundamentals into him until they became reflex. Derek fired his 5 shots at the first target with confident precision. His grouping was tight, professional, the kind of shooting that would impress any civilian instructor. He moved to the second target. His breathing was slightly elevated now, Emma noticed, the pressure of performance getting to him. His shots were still good, very good in fact, but there was a microscopic hesitation before each trigger pull. He was thinking too much, trying too hard to be perfect. The third target was where Derek's technique began to show cracks. 300 yards was where skill separated from training. He fired 5 shots, each one technically correct, but Emma could see the grouping spreading. Not by much. Most people would not even notice. But Emma noticed everything. Tom walked downrange again. This time, when he returned, he handed the binoculars to Emma first. She looked, confirming what she already knew. Derek's shooting was excellent. Against 99% of the shooters who walked onto this range, he would win easily. But Emma was not 99% of shooters. Derek took the binoculars from her, examined his own targets, then looked at hers again. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Disbelief, confusion, frustration. Finally, forced casualness. "You have done this before," he said. "Once or twice," Emma replied quietly. Several people in the crowd were looking at the targets now, comparing groupings. One of them, a younger man in his 20s, let out a low whistle. "Derek shot that perfectly," he said, "but hers is tighter, like significantly tighter." Derek's smile was becoming strained. "Okay," he said. "Okay, that was good, real good, but that was just static targets. Let me set up something more challenging. Moving targets, varying distances, time pressure. That is where real tactical shooting shows up." Emma wanted to refuse. This was exactly the kind of attention she had moved to Montana to avoid. But Derek was already moving, setting up the more complex course, and the crowd was growing. More shooters had stopped their own practice to watch. Tom stood to the side, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "Derek," Emma said, "this is not necessary. You're clearly a skilled instructor. I'm just here for quiet practice." Derek either did not hear her or chose not to. He was in full instructor mode now, explaining to the gathered crowd the nuances of tactical shooting, the techniques he had learned from the legendary Mike Chun, the importance of maintaining accuracy under pressure. Emma sighed quietly. Some lessons she had learned could only be taught through experience. Derek was about to get one of those lessons. The moving target system Derek set up was sophisticated. Motorized targets at varying ranges, appearing at random intervals. Shoot, transition, acquire new target, fire. It was designed to simulate combat conditions. Emma had experienced actual combat conditions. The simulation was not even close. Derek went first this time, wanted to set a benchmark that he believed Emma could not match. He was fast, smooth transitions between targets, good accuracy under time pressure. He finished the course in 42 seconds with acceptable hits on each target. The crowd applauded. Derek took a small bow, his confidence returning. "Your turn," he said to Emma. "Do not worry if you cannot match that. This takes years of dedicated practice to master." Emma stepped to the line. She thought about Mike Chun, about the hundreds of hours they had spent together when he was still learning. She thought about the other students she had trained, operators who now taught others, creating a lineage of excellence that Derek was unwittingly part of. She thought about the missions, the real ones, where missing meant more than losing a bet. It meant people died. She raised her rifle. The first target appeared. Emma fired. The target fell. She transitioned smoothly to scan for the next one. It appeared at 250 yards. She fired. It fell. Her movements were economical, precise, utterly without wasted motion. Each shot was a decision made and executed in the space between heartbeats. She cleared the course in 38 seconds. Every target hit center mass. No misses. No hesitation. Complete silence behind her. Then Tom spoke, his voice quiet but clear. "Where did you serve?" It was not a question of whether Emma had served. Tom knew. He recognized what he was seeing because he had seen it before in people who had been forged in the same fires. Emma lowered her rifle and engaged the safety. "Navy," she said simply. Derek's face had gone pale. "That is not civilian shooting," he said. "That is not even normal military shooting. That is special operations level precision." Emma said nothing. She began to pack her rifle case, her movements calm and unhurried. "Wait," Derek said. "Just wait a minute." He was processing something, his expression shifting from shock to realization. "You said you know Mike. Mike Chun. How exactly do you know him?" Before Emma could answer, Tom spoke again. "What is your name?" "Your full name." "Emma Vance," she replied. Tom went very still. "The ghost," he said quietly. "You are the ghost." Several things happened at once. Derek's eyes went wide. Two of the crowd members pulled out their phones, likely looking up the name. And Emma felt the careful anonymity she had built over the past 3 years begin to crack. But before anyone could ask another question, before Derek could process what he had just heard, Emma noticed something that made her military instincts flare to full alert. A vehicle in the parking lot, dark SUV, windows tinted. For men inside, and they were not there to shoot. They were watching the range with tactical awareness she recognized instantly. "Derek," Emma said quietly, her tone completely changed. "We need to clear this range. Right now." Derek followed Emma's gaze to the parking lot. "What are you talking about?" he said. "That is just a vehicle. People come to ranges all the time." Emma was already moving, positioning herself between the crowd and the SUV. "Tom," she said quietly, "how many exits does this facility have?" Tom's demeanor shifted instantly. "Front entrance, back gate for deliveries, emergency exit through the office." His Marine training was evident in the speed of his response. "What did you see?" "For men. Tactical awareness. Watching us, not the facility." Emma kept her voice low enough that only Tom could hear. "They have been there for 6 minutes. Have not moved. Have not gotten out. Just watching." Tom moved to get a better angle. "Could be security. Could be off-duty law enforcement. Could be," Emma agreed. "But their vehicle has aftermarket suspension modifications. Reinforced frame from the weight distribution. Tinted windows beyond legal limit. And the driver keeps checking his mirrors in a pattern. Combat scan, not civilian nervousness." Derek had caught up to them now, his expression confused and irritated. "Look, I do not know what this ghost thing is about, but you cannot just start giving orders at my range and expect everyone to panic because you see a suspicious car." Tom held up a hand. "Derek, shut up for a second." He turned back to Emma. "You think they are here for someone?" Emma watched the SUV. One of the rear passenger doors had opened slightly, then closed again. Decision being made. Someone giving orders. "Yes," she said. "Question is who?" The SUV doors opened simultaneously. 4 men stepped out, and Emma's threat assessment went from cautious to confirmed in seconds. They moved with coordinated precision, spacing themselves automatically as they approached the range entrance. All wore casual clothing, but the way they carried themselves screamed tactical training. And more importantly, Emma saw the bulges under their jackets that indicated concealed weapons. Tom saw it too. "I am calling the sheriff," he said, pulling out his phone. "Do it quietly," Emma said. "Get everyone inside the office building." Now, Derek finally seemed to grasp the seriousness of the situation. His face had gone pale. "What is happening? Who are those people?" "I do not know yet," Emma replied, "but know what they are, and I know they are not here for anything good." The four men reached the range entrance. The front man was tall, military haircut, late 30s. He surveyed the facility with the kind of professional assessment that confirmed Emma's worst suspicions. These are not amateurs. These were trained operators, possibly former military or law enforcement, now working for someone who could afford to hire that kind of talent. Tom approached them, placing himself between the strangers and his customers. "Gentlemen," he said, "range is closed for a private event. You will need to come back this afternoon." The lead man smiled, but did not reach his eyes. "We are not here to shoot. We are looking for someone." Young man, mid-20s, brown hair, scar on his left cheek. Goes by Josh. Might have been here in the last few days. Emma saw Tom's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. That was a tell. Tom knew who they were talking about. And from his reaction, whoever Josh was, Tom did not want these men finding him. "I've not seen anyone matching that description," Tom said evenly. "Like I said, range is closed. You folks have a good day." The lead man's smile faded. "See, that is interesting, because we have very reliable information that says this Josh has connections to this range, and we need to find him. Soon. Today, in fact." Emma stepped forward, her movement casual, but positioning herself at an angle that gave her tactical advantage. She kept her voice friendly, non-confrontational. "I have been here all morning. Have not seen anyone like that. Maybe try the other ranges in the county. Cascade Tactical over in Great Falls gets a lot of traffic." The lead man turned his attention to Emma, and she saw the moment he registered her. His eyes narrowed slightly, professional assessment. "Who are you?" he asked. "Just a shooter," Emma said. "Enjoying a Saturday morning. Same as everyone else here." One of the other men, shorter but heavily built, spoke up. "We have been watching this place for 20 minutes. Saw you shooting. You're pretty good. Military training." Emma shrugged. "A lot of people have military training. It is Montana." The lead man studied her for a long moment. Then he shifted his attention to Derek, who was standing slightly behind Emma, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "You work here?" he asked. Derek nodded. "I am Instructor, and I can tell you we do not give out information about our customers. Privacy policy." "We are not asking about customers," the lead man said. "We are asking about Josh Briggs. Tom Brigson. And we know he has been here." The name hung in the air. Tom's expression remained neutral, but Emma saw the tension in his shoulders. This was personal. These men were hunting Tom's son. Emma ran through scenarios in her head. For armed men. Crowd of civilians behind her. Limited cover. No law enforcement backup yet, assuming Tom had gotten through on his phone. Best play was de-escalation, buy time, get everyone to safety. "Josh Briggs left town 3 months ago," Tom said, his voice hard. "Has not been back since. Whatever business you think you have with him, it is not here." The lead man pulled out his phone, showed Tom a photo. "This was taken 4 days ago. Your son, at a gas station 15 miles from here. So let me be clear. We know he is in the area. We know he has been here, and we're going to find him. You can make this easy, or you can make this hard. Your choice." Tom's hands clenched into fists. "My son is a witness in a federal case. He is under protection. You people have no right to be looking for him." The lead man's expression hardened. Federal witness protection has some gaps, as it turns out. And the people we work for do not like loose ends. Josh saw something he should not have seen. He testified about things he should have kept quiet about. Now there are consequences. Emma felt the situation escalating. These were not men who would walk away. They were here on a mission, and they would use whatever force necessary to complete it. She glanced back at the crowd. Most were in the office building now, but a few were still out in the open, including Derek. Gentlemen, Emma said, her voice calm but carrying authority. You are on private property, making threats. That is not going to end well for anyone. I suggest you leave now, before this becomes a law enforcement matter. The lead man looked at her again, and this time his assessment was different. He saw something in her stance, in the way she positioned herself, in the quiet confidence of her voice. Lady, he said slowly, I do not know who you are, but you should walk away from this. Right now. This does not concern you. Emma met his gaze steadily. I'm concerned about those people behind me, and I'm concerned about escalating violence on a civilian shooting range. So yes, it concerns me. The shorter man laughed. You think you're going to stop us? You and the old Marine and the pretty boy instructor. Emma did not respond to the taunt. She was calculating distances, angles, cover positions. If this went violent, she needed to control where and how it happened. Move the threat away from civilians. Create opportunities for escape routes. Standard protection protocol. The lead man took a step forward. Last chance. Tell us where Josh Briggs is, or we start making this difficult for everyone here. Tom stepped up beside Emma. My son is not here, and you're not going to threaten my customers. Get off my property. Now. The lead man sighed. He reached into his jacket, and Emma's entire body tensed, ready to move. But he pulled out a wallet instead of a weapon. He flipped it open to show a badge. Private security contractor, he said, licensed and bonded. We have legal authority to conduct this investigation. Tom's expression was grim. Private security does not trump federal witness protection, and it sure as hell does not give you the right to threaten people. The lead man put his wallet away. See, that is where you are wrong. We have clients with very deep pockets and very good lawyers. And right now, those lawyers say we can be here asking questions. Your son made enemies, bad ones, and those enemies are tired of waiting for the justice system to work. Emma saw movement in her peripheral vision. The other three men were fanning out, creating a perimeter. Standard tactical positioning. They were preparing for confrontation, whether or not it came to violence. This was a trained team, operating with clear objectives and defined roles. Derek finally spoke up, his voice shaky. I'm calling the police. You do that, the lead man said. We will be gone before they arrive. But we will be back. Today, tomorrow, next week. We will find Josh Briggs. It is just a question of how many people get hurt in the process. Emma made a decision. Tom, she said quietly, get everyone out through the back. Now, Tom hesitated for only a second, then nodded. He moved toward the office, ushering the remaining civilians toward the rear exit. The lead man's eyes locked onto Emma. You are making a mistake, he said, standing between us and our objective. Emma's voice was quiet, almost gentle. I have made a lot of mistakes in my life. This is not one of them. You need to leave. Your objective is not here. Pushing this further will only cause problems you do not want. The lead man studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it was cold. You are military, he said. I can tell. Probably think you are tough. But lady, we are professionals. We do not scare easy, and we do not back down. Emma did not respond. She simply held her ground, her body language calm, but unmistakably ready. The tension stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Derek had moved back toward the office, his phone to his ear. The crowd was dispersing, heading for exits, and the four men stood in a loose semicircle, waiting for orders from their leader. Then the lead man spoke again, and Emma heard the shift in his tone. The recognition. You're not just military, he said slowly. You are special operations. I know those moves. I have seen that stance before. Emma said nothing. The man's expression changed. Who trained you? He asked. People you have never heard of, Emma replied. And just like that, the morning sun seemed colder, and the peaceful shooting range felt like a battlefield waiting to happen. The lead man took another step forward, his posture shifting from casual interrogation to something more predatory. Emma tracked the movement, simultaneously monitoring the positions of his three teammates. They were good. Spacing was professional, angles covered, no clustering that would make them vulnerable to a single point of attack. Whoever trained these men had done it well. Tom returned from the office, his face grim. Everyone is out the back. Sheriff is 10 minutes away. He positioned himself next to Emma, and she noted with approval that he took an angle that gave them overlapping fields of fire, if this went kinetic. Derek emerged behind Tom, looking pale but determined. He had his phone in one hand, but Emma noticed his other hand was near his concealed carry position. The instructor was finally reading the room correctly. 10 minutes, the lead man said. That gives us plenty of time. He gestured to his team. Search the facility. Office, storage, vehicles. Find anything that tells us where Josh Briggs is hiding. Tom stepped forward. You do not have a warrant. You step 1 foot past that entrance, and you are trespassing. I will press charges. The lead man smiled. Press whatever you want. By the time it matters, we will have what we came for. He nodded to his team, and 2 of them started moving toward the office building. Emma moved to intercept, her body language shifting in a way that made all 4 men pause. She was not aggressive, but there was something in the way she positioned herself that triggered their tactical awareness. Gentlemen, she said quietly, this does not have to escalate. You have been told that Josh Briggs is not here. Searching the property without authorization is going to create legal problems for your employers. I suggest you wait for law enforcement and handle this properly. The shorter man, the one who had laughed earlier, sneered at her. And I suggest you get out of the way before you get hurt. This is not your fight, lady. Emma's voice remained calm. You are right. It is not my fight, but I'm making it my problem, because I do not like watching armed men threaten civilians on a Saturday morning. The lead man studied Emma with renewed intensity. Something was bothering him. She could see it in the way his eyes narrowed, the way his weight shifted slightly back. He was reassessing the threat level. What unit? He asked abruptly. Emma did not answer. Navy, he said, making it a statement rather than a question. Special warfare. You move like a SEAL. And Tom called you something. The ghost. He paused, his expression changing. Oh hell, you are Emma Vance. The other 3 men reacted to the name. The shorter one stopped smirking. One of the others, who had been moving toward the office, halted mid-step. The 4th man, who had been quiet until now, spoke for the first time. That is not possible. Emma Vance retired years ago. Disappeared. No one has seen her since. The lead man kept his eyes on Emma. Apparently someone has. He took a step back, creating more distance. His team mirrored the movement automatically. This changes things, he said. We were not briefed that you would be here. Emma watched their repositioning with professional interest. They knew who she was. Or, at least, they knew the reputation. That was both useful and problematic. Useful because it might prevent violence. Problematic because it meant her carefully constructed anonymity was destroyed. It does not change anything, Emma said. Josh Briggs is not here. You're not searching this facility. And you're leaving before law enforcement arrives. Those are the only facts that matter. The lead man pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then waited. Emma could see him weighing options. His team was good, but they had not expected to run into someone with a background. The tactical calculus had shifted. Derek moved closer to Emma, keeping his voice low. What is happening? Why do they care who you are? Emma kept her eyes on the 4 men. Because they know that if this turns violent, their odds just got significantly worse. But there are 4 of them, Derek said. And you're just one person. Tom answered before Emma could. Son, you do not understand what you're looking at. Emma Vance has more confirmed combat kills than most entire platoons. If she says they should be worried, they should be terrified. The lead man's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, his jaw tightening. He typed another message, received another response. When he looked up at Emma again, his expression was different. Frustrated, angry, but also resigned. My employer wants to know if you're protecting Josh Briggs, he said. If you have personal involvement in this situation. Emma shook her head. I met Tom about 40 minutes ago. I have never met Josh Briggs. I have no investment in whatever case he testified about. But I do have a problem with armed contractors threatening people at a civilian facility. So here is what is going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to tell your employer that Josh Briggs was not at this location. And you're going to find another way to pursue whatever vendetta you are being paid to execute. The lead man laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think it is that simple? You think we just walk away because a retired operator tells us to? Emma's voice remained steady. I think you walk away because your tactical assessment just informed you that the cost-benefit analysis does not favor engagement. You came here expecting to intimidate a retired Marine and some civilian shooters. Instead, you found someone with a skill set that makes your job exponentially more complicated. Smart money says you withdraw, regroup, and approach this from a different angle. The shorter man spoke up, his voice aggressive. We have orders. We do not leave empty-handed. Emma turned her attention to him. Then I suggest you expand your definition of empty-handed. Because the alternative is that law enforcement shows up and find you trespassing on private property with concealed weapons and documented threats. That creates paperwork, investigations, attention, things I imagine your employer would prefer to avoid. The lead man was having another silent conversation via text. Emma could see the tension in his shoulders, the frustration of someone who was being given orders he did not like. Finally, he put his phone away. We are leaving, he said, but this is not over. Josh Briggs is going to be found. If not today, then tomorrow. If not here, then somewhere else. You are just delaying the inevitable. Maybe, Emma said, but delay is still better than the alternative. The lead man gestured to his team. They began moving back toward their SUV, maintaining tactical spacing even in withdrawal. Professional to the end. But before they reached the vehicle, the lead man turned back one more time. For what it is worth, he said to Emma, my team had a lot of respect for what you did. Your service record, the operators you trained. But this job is bigger than respect. The people we work for do not accept failure. We'll be back. And next time, we will come prepared for you. Emma nodded acknowledgement. And next time, I will know exactly who I am dealing with. That knowledge goes both ways. The four men got into their SUV. The engine started, and they pulled out of the parking lot with control precision. No scaling tides, no aggressive gestures. Just professionals executing a tactical withdrawal. As soon as they were out of sight, Derek let out a breath he had apparently been holding. What just happened? What the hell just happened? Tom was already on his phone again, presumably updating the sheriff. Emma walked to the range entrance and looked down the road, watching for any sign that the SUV might return. Her mind was already working through next steps, contingencies, threat assessments. Derek approached her, his expression a mixture of awe and confusion. He just faced down four armed men like it was nothing, like it was just another day. Emma turned to look at him. It was not nothing. And it was definitely not just another day. Those men are trained professionals, probably former military or law enforcement. They were sent here to do a job, and they will try to complete it. We bought some time. That is all. Tom finished his call and walked over. Sheriff is 3 minutes out. State police are being notified. And I just called my son, warned him that people are actively hunting him. Emma nodded. Where is he? Safe house. Federal marshals have him in a location that is supposed to be secure. Tom's face was tight with worry. But these contractors found out he was in the area. If they can do that, they might be able to find a safe house too. Derek ran a hand through his hair. This is insane. I thought we were just having a shooting competition. Now there are mercenaries and federal witnesses, and he gestured at Emma. Whatever you are, what I am, Emma said quietly, is someone who chose the wrong day to come to the range. She looked at Tom. You need better security here. Cameras in the parking lot. Notification system if suspicious vehicles arrive. Maybe coordinate with local law enforcement for regular patrols. Tom nodded, already thinking about it. But right now, I am more worried about Josh. If they found this place, they might find him. Emma considered the problem. The contractors were clearly well-funded and well-connected. Finding someone in witness protection was not easy, but it was not impossible either, especially if they had inside information or were willing to pay for it. The question was what to do next. Derek spoke up, his voice hesitant. Should we do something? Help somehow. Emma looked at him. The arrogant instructor from an hour ago was gone, replaced by someone who had just gotten a harsh education in the difference between range shooting and real-world threats. You want to help? She asked. Derek nodded. I know I was acting like an idiot earlier. I get that now. But those men threatened people in my range. Threatened Tom. And you stood up to them when you did not have to. So yeah, if there's something I could do to help, I want to do it. Emma studied him for a moment. Then she made a decision that she would later recognize as the moment her quiet retirement ended and her life got complicated again. All right, she said. Then the first thing you need to do is stop thinking like an instructor and start thinking like an operator. Because if those men come back, and they will come back, we need to be ready for them. Tom looked at Emma with understanding. You're going to stay. Help protect Josh. Emma sighed. I'm going to make sure this situation does not spiral into civilian casualties. How I do that is still being determined. Sirens could be heard in the distance, growing louder. Law enforcement was arriving. The immediate crisis was over. But Emma knew, with the certainty that came from years of experience, that this was just the beginning. The contractors would regroup. They would develop a new plan, and they would return with a better understanding of what they were facing. Derek stood next to Emma, looking down the road where the SUV had disappeared. So, he said quietly about that instructor you mentioned. Mike Chun, you really trained him. Emma smiled slightly. A long time ago, when he was still learning the difference between shooting and combat. Same lesson you're learning now. Derek nodded slowly. I have a lot to learn, do I not? Emma looked at him. Yes, but the fact that you recognize that means you might actually be teachable. That is more than most people manage. The sheriff arrived with 2 deputies, all business and skepticism until Tom showed them the security footage from the parking lot cameras Emma had not realized existed. The lead deputy, a woman named Martinez with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, watched the recording 3 times before speaking. For men, tactical positioning, concealed weapons. She looked at Emma, and they backed down because of you. Emma shrugged. They reassessed the situation and chose tactical withdrawal. Smart move on their part. Martinez studied Emma with the kind of attention that meant she was running a mental database search. Emma Vance. I have heard that name. There was a training seminar 5 years back. Joint operations specialist from DevGru came through. Mentioned you as an example of advanced sniper doctrine. Emma said nothing, but Tom spoke up. She's the real deal, deputy. Those contractors knew exactly who they were dealing with. That is why they left. Martinez made notes in her tablet. We will put out alerts for the vehicle. Run the plates through databases. But private security contractors, if they are properly licensed, that limits what we can charge them with. Trespassing maybe. Threatening language. It is not much. Derek, who had been talking to the other deputies, rejoined the group. They asked if I got photos. I did not think to. Too focused on not getting shot. Emma had gotten photos. She pulled out her phone and showed Martinez a series of images she had taken discreetly during the confrontation. Clear shots of all 4 faces, the vehicle license plate, even the bulges under their jackets that indicated weapons. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Thorough. Habit, Emma replied. The sheriff, an older man named Dawson, approached from where he had been examining the range. Tom, he said, I'm putting a patrol car here for the rest of the day, and I am coordinating with the marshals who have your boy. They need to know about this incident immediately. Tom nodded, his face drawn. Josh called me back. He is scared. Says there have been other signs someone is looking for him. Strange cars near the safe house. Unfamiliar people asking questions in town. Emma felt a familiar weight settling over her. The kind that came before missions went bad. These contractors were part of a larger operation. Well-funded, well-organized, and clearly willing to put significant resources into finding one witness. That suggested the people Josh testified against had serious motivation to silence him. What did Josh witness? Emma asked Tom quietly. Tom hesitated, then decided. Arms trafficking. Major operation moving weapons to criminal organizations. Josh was working security at a warehouse. Saw things being loaded that were not on any manifest. Serial numbers filed off military-grade hardware. When he realized what was happening, he documented it. Took photos, went to the FBI, and testified, Emma added. 2 weeks ago. Grand jury. Tom's voice was heavy. The people running the operation, they have connections. Money. The kind of people who can hire teams of contractors to clean up loose ends. Martinez was typing rapidly on her tablet. I am flagging this for federal attention. Arms trafficking with witness intimidation. That brings in ATF and FBI. You folks did the right thing calling us. But this is bigger than county sheriff jurisdiction. Derek had been quiet, processing. He spoke up now, his voice uncertain. So what happens next? Those men said they would be back. Do we just wait for them? Emma looked at the range, calculating sight lines, defensive positions, choke points. Waiting is exactly what we do not do. We prepare. Make this location harder to approach. Establish early warning systems. Create defensive advantages. Tom crossed his arms. You're talking about fortifying a shooting range. Emma met his eyes. I'm talking about making sure that when they come back, and they will come back, we control the engagement. Right now, they have initiative. They choose when and where to act. We need to take that away from them. Sheriff Dawson looked skeptical. Ma'am, with all respect for your service, we cannot turn a civilian business into a military installation. We have laws, procedures. Emma nodded. I am not suggesting anything illegal, just practical security measures. Better cameras, motion sensors, clear fields of observation. Things any business might implement after a security threat. Martinez looked up from her tablet. The federal marshals want to move Josh to a new location. Completely different state. They think Montana is compromised. Tom's face showed his conflict. That is probably smart. But Josh has been through so much already. Moving again, new identity, new location. He sounded tired. Better than the alternative, Emma said quietly. If these contractors are as capable as they appeared, staying in one place too long is a risk. Derek's phone buzzed. He looked at it and went pale. We have a problem. One of the shooters from this morning just posted on social media. Tagged the range. Mentioned the competition. And he swallowed hard. Mentioned you by name. The ghost showed up at Pine Ridge Range today and shut down some sketchy guys. Emma felt a cold spike of frustration. Her anonymity, carefully maintained for 3 years, was evaporating by the minute. How many followers? She asked. Derek checked. 1,500. And it is being shared. Comments already asking if it is the real Emma Vance. Martinez looked concerned. That is going to draw attention. Media, maybe. Other people who might be interested in your location. Emma knew she was right. In the age of social media, secrets lasted about as long as morning dew. Within hours, possibly minutes, people would know she was in Montana. Some would be curious. Some would be admirers. And some would be exactly the kind of people she had spent 3 years avoiding. Tom put a hand on Emma's shoulder. I am sorry. This is my problem. My son, you should not have gotten dragged into this. Emma shook her head. I made a choice to step in. On that choice. Now we deal with the consequences. She looked at Martinez. Those federal marshals moving Josh. When? Tonight. They want him relocated before word spreads further. Emma thought quickly. The contractors came here looking for information. They did not find it. But now they know I am involved. They might assume I have connections to Josh, information about his location. That makes me a target. Derek's eyes widened. They would come after you. If they think I know something useful, yes. Emma considered the tactical implications, which actually creates an opportunity. If they're focused on me, they're not focused on Josh. We can use that. Sheriff Dawson held up a hand. Now hold on. You're talking about making yourself bait. That is law enforcement work, not civilian heroics. Emma smiled without humor. Sheriff, I have been bait more times than I can count. Usually in significantly more dangerous circumstances than a Montana shooting range. The difference is this time I get to choose the ground and prepare the environment. Martinez was shaking her head. Even if we agreed to this, which we have not, how would you draw them in? They do not know where you live. You could disappear right now. But I will not, Emma said, because they are already watching. Probably have been since they left. She gestured toward the road. They want to know who I am, where I go, whether I actually have information about Josh. So I give them something to follow. Tom understood first. You stay here, at the range. Make it obvious you are helping me secure the location. Exactly. Emma was already planning. They see me working with you. See law enforcement presence. They have to decide whether to back off or escalate. Either way, It keeps pressure off Josh during his relocation. Derek looked between Emma and Tom. This is crazy. You're going to paint a target on yourself to protect someone you have never met. Emma's voice was quiet but firm. Josh Briggs did the right thing. He witnessed a crime and reported it. Now criminals are hunting him for that choice. If I can help keep him alive by being a distraction for one day, that is an easy decision. Martinez exchanged a look with Sheriff Dawson. He sighed heavily. I do not like this, but I also do not have a better option for keeping that boy safe. She turned to Emma. If we do this, you follow our rules. You coordinate with law enforcement. You do not engage these contractors without backup. Clear. Crystal, Emma said, knowing full well that rules were going to bend the moment violence started. But Martinez did not need to hear that right now. The sheriff pulled out his radio. I am calling in state police support. If these contractors come back, I want overwhelming force ready to respond. Emma appreciated the sentiment, but knew from experience that overwhelming force had limitations. The contractors were professionals. They would not engage openly against superior numbers. They would wait, watch, probe for weaknesses. The question was whether Emma could create an opportunity that forced their hand before Josh was safely relocated. Tom looked at his watch. Sun is getting higher. If they are watching, they know law enforcement is here. They might wait until dark to make another move. Emma nodded. Probably. Which gives us time to prepare. She looked at Derek. You still want to help? Derek straightened. Yes, absolutely. Good. Emma's tone shifted to instructor mode. Then first lesson. Real security is not about looking tough. It is about creating an environment where threats cannot succeed. We need to identify vulnerabilities, establish observation points, and create contingencies for multiple scenarios. Derek pulled out a notebook, actually taking notes. Tom watched with an expression somewhere between admiration and concern. Martinez and the sheriff coordinated with their respective agencies, setting up the law enforcement response framework. And in the back of Emma's mind, beneath the tactical planning and threat assessment, was a single clear thought. She had come to Montana for peace, for quiet, for the chance to leave the violence behind. But violence, it seemed, had a way of finding people who knew how to handle it. The contractors would come back, probably tonight, probably with better intelligence and a clearer plan. Emma checked her weapons, counted her ammunition, and allowed herself a small, cold smile. They wanted to know if the legendary ghost was really retired. By the end of the day, they would have their answer, and it was not the one they were hoping for. The sun had barely moved an hour across the sky when the first reporter showed up. Local news station from Great Falls, camera crew in tow, asking about the ghost of Pine Ridge Range. Tom sent them away politely but firmly. The second reporter was less polite. The third brought a satellite truck. Emma watched from inside the office building, staying out of sight. This was the problem with modern warfare. The battlefield was not just physical anymore. It was digital, social, viral. Every phone was a potential intelligence leak. Every curious civilian was a complication. Derek knocked on the office door. Emma, the state police tactical team, just arrived. They want to talk strategy. Emma emerged to find 4 state troopers in tactical gear, led by a sergeant named Chun. No relation to Mike. She confirmed after Emma's questioning look. The sergeant was professional, competent, and clearly briefed on who Emma was. We have sniper positions on the ridgeline, Chun reported, pointing to a tactical map of the area. 2-person teams with thermal imaging. Any vehicle approaching gets logged and tracked. We also have a response team, stage 2 minutes out. If shooting starts, we move in fast. Emma studied the map. Good positions. But the contractors saw law enforcement presence. They're not going to come in obvious. They will probe first. Test responses. Look for patterns. Chun nodded. That is what I would do. So what do you suggest? Emma traced her finger along the map. They have 4 approaches to this facility. Front entrance, back gate, and 2 points where the fence line is vulnerable. If they are smart, they send a small team to create a distraction at one point while the real assault comes from another direction. Tom joined them. I have cameras at all those points now. Motion activated. Feed goes to the office and directly to the sheriff's department. Good, Emma said, but cameras can be disabled. We need human observation as backup. She looked at Chun. Can your teams rotate, so there's always fresh eyes on each approach? Already planned for it, Chun confirmed. Shifts every 4 hours. We can maintain this for 48 hours if needed. Emma shook her head. Will not take 48 hours. They will move tonight or not at all. Every hour that passes, Josh gets farther away and harder to find. The contractors have a window. They will use it. Derek had been listening intently. What can I do? I know I'm not trained like you all, but I want to help. Emma considered. You know this facility better than anyone except Tom. Where are the blind spots? Places cameras do not cover. Routes someone could use to approach without being seen. Derek thought for a moment, then pointed to the map. Here, there's a drainage culvert that runs under the access road. Comes up inside the property line. We never secured it because it is too small for a person to fit through. Emma looked closer. How small? Maybe 2 feet diameter. Derek seemed confident in his assessment. Emma pulled out her phone and showed him photos from earlier. The shorter contractor. How much do you think he weighs? Derek's face went pale. Maybe 160. Compact build. Oh hell, he could fit. Exactly, Emma said. She turned to Chun. We need someone watching that culvert. Night vision, thermals if you have them. Chun made notes. Consider it done. What else? Emma spent the next 2 hours identifying vulnerabilities that seemed impossible until you considered operators willing to do uncomfortable, difficult things to accomplish their mission. She knew because she had done exactly those kinds of insertions dozens of times. Crawl through mud, wait in freezing water, squeeze through spaces that barely accommodated a human body. Comfort was not part of the equation. Only mission success mattered. By afternoon, the range had been transformed. What looked like a casual shooting facility now had layers of observation and response that would make most military installations proud. But Emma knew that defenses were only as good as the people manning them. And people got tired, made mistakes, let their guard down. Tom brought coffee and sandwiches from a diner in town. Emma ate mechanically, fuel rather than enjoyment. Derek picked at his food, nervous energy making him restless. The state police rotated through their meal break with professional efficiency. Martinez returned with an update. Josh Briggs is in transit. New location in Arizona. Completely different federal district. Should be there by midnight. Emma nodded. That is when they will move. When they realize their window is closing. She looked at her watch. We have maybe 6 hours. The afternoon dragged with the peculiar intensity that came before action. Emma checked weapons, counted ammunition, reviewed fields of fire. Derek watched and learned, asking occasional questions that showed he was starting to understand tactical thinking. Tom coordinated with law enforcement, his Marine training evident in how he organized logistics. At 1700 hours, Emma noticed the first probe. A civilian vehicle drove past the range slowly. Too slowly. The driver was looking at the facility with obvious interest. The vehicle circled around and made another pass 20 minutes later. Chen's team noted it. Ran the plates. Rental car. Paid for with a corporate credit card from a security consulting firm based in Virginia. Emma smiled grimly. They are testing response times. Seeing who notices. Who reacts. She pulled out her phone and made a call. When Mike Chen answered, she got straight to business. Mike, Emma Vance. I need you to make some calls. There was a pause. Then Mike's voice came through warm and surprised. Ghost, I heard you surfaced in Montana. Caused quite a stir. What do you need? Emma explained the situation in concise terms. Arms, trafficking witnesses, contractor hit team, federal protection in motion. I need to know who these people are working for. Who has the resources to hire this kind of talent and the motivation to go after a federal witness. Mike was quiet for a moment. That is a short list. Very short. Give me 2 hours. I will call back with what I can find. Emma had no doubt he would deliver. Mike had connections throughout the special operations community and the intelligence apparatus that supported it. If anyone could identify the contractor's employer, it was him. Derek approached as Emma ended the call. Was that Mike Chun? The Mike Chun. Emma nodded. The same one who supposedly taught you everything. Derek had the grace to look embarrassed. I may have overstated his opinion of my abilities. Probably never mention my name. Probably not, Emma agreed. But he's a good teacher. You could learn a lot from him if you approach it with humility. I am learning that humility thing, Derek said quietly. Today has been very educational. The sun began its descent toward the mountains. Long shadows stretched across the range. Emma felt the familiar pre-combat focus settling into place. Her breathing slowed. Her awareness expanded. Every sound, every movement registered and was categorized. Threat or neutral. Important or background noise. At 1900 hours, Mike called back. Got your answer, he said without preamble. The contractors are working for Christoph Volkov, Russian national with U.S. citizenship. Runs what looks like legitimate import-export, but intelligence has him flagged for arms trafficking. Big operation. Connections in multiple countries. Emma felt pieces clicking into place. And Josh Briggs testified against his operation. Direct testimony. Photos of the warehouse. Serial numbers that traced back to military theft. Volkov is looking at 20 years federal time if the case proceeds. Losing that witness would kill the prosecution. Emma thanked Mike and shared the information with Martinez and Shun. They exchanged looks of concern. Volkov was not some street-level criminal. He was sophisticated, wealthy, and very motivated. Martinez made more calls, looping in federal prosecutors and FBI. The information changed the threat assessment. This was not just witness intimidation anymore. This was organized crime with international connections. As twilight settled over the range, Emma positioned herself at the office window with the best sight lines. Derek was with Tom in the secondary observation post. State police teams were in their positions. Law enforcement response units were staged and ready. The waiting was always the hardest part. Emma had learned that years ago in deserts and mountains half a world away. The human mind wanted action, wanted resolution. Waiting required discipline that most people never developed. At 2000 hours, all the lights in the parking lot went out simultaneously. Emma keyed her radio. Here we go. Positions everyone. They just announced their arrival. Chen's voice came back calm and professional. We see it. Breaker box was tripped remotely. Someone has technical capability. Emma scanned the darkness through night vision optics. The contractors were out there, planning their approach, confident in their abilities and their intelligence. They had no idea what they were walking into. Or more accurately, they thought they did, but their intelligence was incomplete. Because what the contractors did not know, what they could not know, was that Emma Vance had spent 20 years preparing for moments exactly like this. She had defended positions against overwhelming odds, had turned disadvantages into victories, had survived situations that should have been fatal. The ghost had not retired. She had just been waiting for a mission worth coming back for. And protecting an innocent witness from criminal violence? That was exactly the kind of mission she had spent her life training to execute. Movement in Sector 3. Chen's voice cut through the radio. 2 individuals approaching from the drainage culvert. Emma smiled in the darkness. Predictable. She keyed her radio and gave the order that would begin the engagement. Let them come. We own this ground now. The 2 figures emerged from the drainage culvert exactly as Emma had predicted. They moved with practiced stealth, night vision goggles evident from their head profiles. State police observers tracked them silently, waiting for Emma's signal. Hold position, Emma transmitted. Let them commit. We need all of them inside the perimeter before we act. Chen acknowledged. His discipline was impressive. Lesser commanders would have wanted to grab the immediate threat. But Emma was playing a longer game. These 2 were scouts. The main force would be watching their progress, waiting for the all-clear before committing. Derek's voice came through on a separate channel, tight with tension. I see movement at the north fence line. 3 individuals. They are cutting through. Emma checked her tablet showing camera feeds. Derek was right. 3 more contractors using wire cutters on the chain link. That made 5 accounted for. 1 more than had appeared this morning. They had reinforcements. Tom's voice joined the radio net. Vehicle approaching from the east access road. Lights off. Moving slow. Emma processed the information rapidly. Classic multi-axis assault. Scouts through the culvert, Breach team at the fence, vehicle support on the road. They were committing significant resources. That told her two things. First, they believed Emma had valuable intelligence about Josh's location. Second, they were willing to risk a major confrontation to get it. Chun, Emma transmitted. When I give a word, lights come on and your teams move to interdiction positions. I want them caught in the open with nowhere to go. Understood, Chun replied. Standing by, Emma watched the tactical picture develop. The scouts from the culvert were approaching the office building. The breach team was through the fence and moving toward the armory storage. The vehicle had stopped at the tree line, likely providing overwatch and extraction capability. They were good, coordinated, professional, but they were also predictable. They had done this kind of operation before, probably many times. Success had made them confident. Confidence had made them follow patterns. Emma keyed the radio. Execute. Floodlights blazed across the range, turning night into day. The contractors froze, temporarily blinded by the sudden illumination. State police teams emerged from concealment, weapons trained, commands shouting through the night. State police, drop your weapons. Get on the ground now. For a frozen second, Emma thought they might comply. Then the contractor team leader, the same man from this morning, made a decision. His hand went to his weapon. Chen's team reacted instantly. Warning shots snapped over the contractors' heads. The message was clear: surrender or face overwhelming force. But the contractor leader was not surrendering. He barked orders to his team, and they scattered with tactical precision. Smoke grenades popped, creating instant concealment. The contractors were not running away. They were executing a practice drill for exactly this scenario. Emma had anticipated this too. She triggered the secondary lighting system she had positioned that afternoon. Lights at ground level, shining up through the smoke, creating shadows and destroying the concealment. Basic infantry tactics, the kind she had learned decades ago and never forgotten. The contractors found themselves exposed again. But now they were committed, trapped between advancing state police and Emma's position. The vehicle at the tree line revved its engine, preparing to provide cover fire or extraction. Emma had other plans for that vehicle. She raised her rifle, acquired the target through her optic, and fired 3 rapid shots. Not at the vehicle's occupants, but at the engine block. The rounds punched through the hood, and within seconds, steam began pouring from the radiator. The vehicle lurched forward, then died. Chen's teams were moving now, professional and controlled. The contractors were outnumbered and outgunned. Their escape route was disabled. They had seconds to make a choice. The team leader raised his hands. Stand down, he shouted to his people. Stand down. One by one, the contractors complied. They dropped weapons, assumed prone positions, hands visible. State police moved in with zip ties and controlled aggression. Within 2 minutes, all 6 contractors were secured and being searched. Emma emerged from the office building, Derek and Tom behind her. She approached the team leader, who was being held separate from his team. He looked up at her with a mixture of anger and grudging respect. You knew, he said. Knew we would come tonight. Knew our approach vectors. Emma crouched down to his eye level. You are predictable. Good training becomes bad habits when you rely on it too much. You assumed this would be like every other soft target you have hit. It was not. The man actually smiled. Volkov is not going to be happy about this. Emma's voice was cold. Volkov can file a complaint from federal prison, where he is going to spend the next 20 years because Josh Briggs had the courage to testify. Martinez arrived with additional units, beginning the process of formally arresting the contractors. Weapons charges, trespassing, conspiracy to commit assault. The list would be long and serious. Chen approached Emma, extending his hand. That was textbook defensive operation. Where did you learn to set an ambush like that? Places that do not exist on maps, Emma replied, shaking his hand. Against people who were a lot more dangerous than private contractors. Derek stood nearby, his expression somewhere between awe and exhaustion. You planned all of this. Every step. Not all of it, Emma corrected. I planned contingencies. They chose which one to trigger. The art is not controlling the enemy. It is creating an environment where all their choices lead to your victory. Tom walked over to the disabled vehicle. 3 state troopers were extracting 2 more contractors from inside. That makes 8 total, he said. Volkov must have really wanted Josh found. Emma nodded, which means Josh's testimony is devastating to his operation. The prosecutor is going to have a strong case. Martinez joined them, her phone pressed to her ear. She listened for a moment, then smiled. Josh Briggs just arrived at his new location. Safe and secure. She looked at Emma. Your distraction worked. They were so focused on you, they never noticed the actual witness being relocated. That was the plan, Emma said quietly. She felt the familiar post-combat mixture of relief and weariness settling over her. The mission was accomplished. Josh was safe. The contractors were captured. It was over. Except it was not really over. Emma knew that. Volkov still had resources. He could hire more contractors. The threat would not truly end until he was convicted and imprisoned. But tonight, Josh had gained time and distance. That was enough. Derek approached Emma as the scene began to calm down. State police were loading contractors into transport vehicles. News crews were arriving, drawn by reports of the confrontation. Sheriff Dawson was setting up a perimeter to keep them back. I learned more in the last 12 hours than I learned in 10 years of instruction, Derek said quietly. About tactics, about humility, about the difference between looking dangerous and actually being effective. Emma looked at him. You have potential, raw skill, but more importantly, you are willing to learn. That is rarer than you might think. Derek hesitated, then asked the question that had clearly been building. Would you consider training me? Really training me? Not just range shooting, but tactical thinking. Real combat preparation. Emma considered the request. 3 years ago, she would have said no immediately. She had left that life behind. But tonight had reminded her why she had spent 20 years in special operations. Why she had trained dozens of operators. There was purpose in preparing people to protect others. Meaning in passing on hard-won knowledge. I am not taking students, she said finally. But I might be willing to consult occasionally. Correct bad habits. Provide advanced techniques. If you're serious about learning. Derek's face lit up. I'm serious. Absolutely serious. Then first lesson starts now, Emma said. You see how this played out tonight. We had superior position, better intelligence, and numerical advantage. But it only worked because we prepared methodically and executed with discipline. Tactics without preparation is just improvisation. And improvisation gets people killed. Derek pulled out his ever-present notebook. I am listening. Emma spent the next 20 minutes walking him through the tactical decisions of the evening. Why certain positions were chosen. How lighting was used as a weapon. The psychology of making an enemy feel trapped. Derek took notes frantically, asking smart questions that showed he was starting to understand the principles beneath the actions. Tom watched from a distance, a small smile on his weathered face. When Emma finally finished with Derek, Tom approached. Thank you, he said simply. For my son. For this range. For putting yourself at risk when you had no obligation to do any of this. Emma shook her head. Josh did the right thing. He deserved protection. And these contractors needed to understand that witness intimidation has consequences. Martinez waved Emma over to where the team leader was being processed. He asked to speak with you, she said. Specifically requested you by name. Emma approached cautiously. The man looked up at her, his expression serious. You need to know something, he said. Volkov does not take losses well. We are not his only team. There will be others. Emma's voice was steady. Then they will learn the same lesson you did tonight. The man shook his head. You do not understand. Volkov has connections that go beyond normal criminal enterprise. People in governments. Intelligence agencies. He can bring resources that will make tonight look like a training exercise. Why are you telling me this? Emma asked. Because I respect professionals. And you are the most professional operator I have seen outside government service. He leaned forward slightly. You embarrassed Volkov tonight. Made him look weak. He will not forget that. And he will not forgive it. Emma met his gaze calmly. Then he should have chosen his battles more carefully. Josh Briggs is under federal protection now. Multiple agencies are watching. If Volkov wants to keep escalating, he's going to find himself facing a lot more than one retired SEAL. The contractor nodded slowly. Fair enough, but do not say you were not warned. He was led away to a transport vehicle, leaving Emma with a nagging sense of unfinished business. Derek rejoined her as the last of the contractors were loaded for transport. So it is really over, he asked. For tonight, Emma replied. But the larger game is still in motion. Volkov is still free. Josh still has to testify at trial. There are months of legal proceedings ahead. And you, Derek asked, what do you do now? Emma looked around the range. The floodlights were still on. State police were processing the scene. News helicopters circled overhead. Her quiet, anonymous life in Montana was thoroughly destroyed. Everyone would know where Emma Vance was now, what she had done, who she was. Now, she said quietly, I adapt to the new reality, and I prepare for whatever comes next. Because in my experience, it always comes. 3 days after the confrontation at Pine Ridge Range, Emma sat in a federal building in Helena, listening to FBI Special Agent Rebecca Torres explain why her life had just become exponentially more complicated. Christoph Volkov disappeared 48 hours ago, Torres said, sliding a folder across the conference table. Private jet filed a flight plan to Moscow. He was gone before we could execute arrest warrants. Russia does not have an extradition treaty with the United States. Emma had expected this. Men like Volkov did not get caught easily. They had contingency plans, escape routes, resources to vanish when situations turned unfavorable. Still, his flight confirmed what the contractor had warned. Volkov was not going to let this go quietly. Torres continued. The trial for his organization proceeds without him. We have 18 defendants in custody, including 2 of his top lieutenants. Josh Briggs' testimony is critical to securing convictions, which means Volkov still has strong motivation to eliminate that testimony. Derek, who had been invited to the briefing at Emma's request, spoke up. But Josh is in witness protection now. Different state. New identity. How would Volkov even find him? Torres exchanged glances with her partner, Agent Marcus Wade. That is what we thought 3 days ago. Then this happened. She pulled up a laptop screen showing surveillance footage. A man entering an apartment building. Grainy but clear enough to identify. That is Josh, Tom said quietly from his seat next to Emma. When was this taken? Yesterday morning. Phoenix, Arizona. Torres froze the frame. He was leaving his safe house to get groceries. Routine movement, approved by his handlers. Except someone was waiting. She advanced the footage. Another man appeared, following Josh at a careful distance. Professional surveillance. Josh never noticed. Emma leaned forward, studying the tale. Military bearing. Controlled movements. This was not some street criminal. This was another contractor. Wade spoke for the first time. We pulled Josh out immediately. Relocated him again. But the fact that they found him within 72 hours of the first relocation is deeply concerning. There is a leak, Emma said flatly. Someone with access to witness protection details is feeding information to Volkov. Torres nodded. That is our working theory, which means standard protection protocols are compromised. We cannot keep relocating Josh and hoping Volkov does not find him. So what is the solution? Tom asked. His son had called him last night, terrified and exhausted. Tom's weathered face showed the strain of watching his boy hunted like an animal. Torres looked directly at Emma. We need a different approach. Something Volkov would not anticipate, which is where you come in. Emma had been expecting this too. She is not bait again, Tom said sharply. She already put herself at risk once. Actually, Torres said, we were thinking protection detail. Off books. No official records. No bureaucratic trail that could be compromised. Just you, Josh, and a secure location that only a handful of people know about. Emma considered the proposition. It made tactical sense. If witness protection was compromised, the traditional system could not be trusted. But a completely off-grid protection detail with operational security maintained by someone who had spent 20 years protecting high-value assets, that could work. Derek leaned over and whispered to Emma. You would be alone. No backup. No support structure. Not alone, Emma corrected quietly. She looked at Tom. If I do this, I need someone who knows Josh. Someone he trusts. Someone with combat experience who can help maintain security. Tom understood immediately. You want me to come? Emma nodded. Former Marine. Father bond with the protected individual. 2 sets of eyes instead of 1. It makes sense tactically and psychologically. Torres was already nodding. We can arrange that. Full government support for equipment and logistics. But the location and operational details stay completely off the record. Wade added, we would give you 48 hours head start before we even brief the director on the arrangement. Total information blackout. Emma looked at Derek. And you stay here. Continue your training with the state police tactical team. Keep the range operational. Maintain normal patterns. If Volkov has people watching, they need to think I'm still in Montana. Derek looked disappointed, but nodded understanding. I can do that. Make it look like you're still consulting here. Emma turned back to Torres. What is the timeline for trial? 6 weeks until opening statements. Wade pulled up a calendar. Josh testifies in week 2. If we can keep him safe until then, his testimony destroys Volkov's organization, even if Volkov himself is in Russia. 6 weeks was manageable. Emma had maintained operational security for longer periods in significantly more hostile environments. But this was different. This was not enemy combatants in foreign territory. This was sophisticated criminal enterprise with resources and connections inside the United States. Where would we go? Tom asked. Emma had already been thinking about that. Somewhere remote. No cellular service. No internet. Difficult terrain that creates natural defensive advantages. She looked at Torres. Can you secure us a cabin in the Bob Marshall Wilderness? Northern section, near the Chinese wall. Torres raised an eyebrow. That is seriously isolated. Middle of grizzly country. No roads for miles. Exactly, Emma said. We go in by helicopter. Only the pilot knows the drop-off location, and he is military, not civilian contractor. We take enough supplies for 6 weeks. Radio check-ins at random intervals to prevent pattern establishment. 0 electronic footprint otherwise. Wade was nodding. That could work. Volkov's people are good, but finding someone in 1,000,000 acres of wilderness with no digital trail, that is exponentially harder than compromising federal databases. Tom looked uncertain. I have not been in true wilderness since my Marine days. That was 30 years ago. Emma met his eyes. It will come back. Like riding a bicycle. Except the bicycle is trying to kill you, and you have to protect your son while learning to ride again. Despite the tension, Tom smiled slightly. You have a gift for motivation. Torres began outlining logistics. Equipment. Weapons. Supplies. Communication protocols. Emma listened while simultaneously running tactical scenarios in her head. The wilderness provided natural security, but it also meant isolation. If something went wrong, extraction would take hours. They would be completely self-reliant. Derek was taking notes again, his expression thoughtful. This is smart, he said. Take away all the technological advantages Volkov's people rely on. Force them to operate in an environment where skills matter more than money. Emma nodded approval. You are learning. Modern operators depend heavily on technology. GPS satellite imagery, electronic surveillance. Remove those tools, and most become significantly less effective. The meeting continued for another hour, finalizing details. Josh would be extracted from his current location by FBI without notification of destination. Tom would be picked up simultaneously. Emma would leave Montana through a deliberately visible route, then double back covertly to the actual departure point. As they prepared to leave, Torres pulled Emma aside. Off the record, she said quietly, this is risky. If Volkov somehow finds you out there, response time could be hours. Maybe longer in bad weather. Emma's expression was calm. Special Agent Torres, I have operated in conditions that would give your worst nightmares anxiety attacks. 6 weeks in Montana wilderness protecting one witness? That is practically a vacation. Torres smiled despite herself. The reports about you do not exaggerate, do they? Depends on the reports, Emma said. Some probably understate the reality. They separated with handshakes and secure phone numbers. Emma, Tom and Derek walked out of the federal building into bright Montana sunshine. A news van was parked across the street, cameraman filming their exit. Emma ignored it completely. Derek walked them to Tom's truck. "So this is it. You disappear into the wilderness for 6 weeks while I play decoy in town." Emma put a hand on his shoulder. "Not just decoy. You are the visible presence that makes them think their intelligence is accurate. Every day you are at the range, acting normal, is a day they are not looking in the right direction." Derek straightened. "I will make it convincing." And he hesitated. "When you get back, assuming everything goes well, will you still train me?" Emma considered. "If I get back and Josh testifies successfully, I will have completed a mission I never intended to take on. At that point, I will probably owe the universe a favor. Training you might qualify." Derek grinned. "I will hold you to that." Tom started his truck, then looked at Emma. "My son does not know you. When he finds out a retired Navy SEAL is going to be protecting him in the middle of wilderness, he's going to have questions. Tell him I am someone who believes witnesses should not be murdered for doing the right thing," Emma said. "That should be sufficient explanation." They drove back to the range in comfortable silence. Emma was already mentally preparing for the mission. Equipment lists, tactical considerations, threat assessments. It was familiar mental territory, the kind of planning she had done countless times before. But as they pulled into the range parking lot, Emma saw something that made every instinct flare to alert. A black sedan, government plates, 2 people inside waiting. Tom saw it too. More FBI. Emma did not think so. The posture was wrong. Too casual. She reached for her concealed weapon as she exited the truck. The sedan doors opened. A woman emerged first. Late 50s, elegant in a way that suggested power and money. She was followed by a man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. They approached with practiced confidence. "Emma Vance," the woman said. "My name is Adriana Volkov. I believe you have been causing problems for my husband. We need to talk." Emma felt the situation shift beneath her feet. Volkov's wife. Here, in Montana, walking openly up to her with what appeared to be a lawyer. This was not an attack. This was something potentially more dangerous. This was negotiation. And Emma was about to find out exactly what Christoph Volkov was willing to offer to make his witness protection problem disappear. Emma kept her hand near her weapon, but did not draw. Adriana Volkov stood 10 feet away, her posture relaxed but alert. The lawyer remained slightly behind her, briefcase held professionally. Tom had moved to Emma's right flank without conscious coordination. Old habits from decades past. "Mrs. Volkov," Emma said carefully. "This is unexpected." Adriana smiled, but it held no warmth. "I imagine it is. My husband tends to send contractors to handle his problems. I prefer direct conversation." She gestured to the range office. "May we speak privately?" Emma calculated rapidly. This could be a distraction, a setup for an attack from another direction. But Adriana had approached openly, in daylight, with what appeared to be legitimate legal counsel. Killing her would serve no tactical purpose and create massive complications. "We can talk here," Emma said, "in the open, where everyone can see us." Adriana nodded acceptance. "As you wish." She opened a slim leather folder. "I'm going to be direct, Ms. Vance. My husband made poor decisions, associated with dangerous people, built a business on activities I did not approve of and did not participate in." Emma kept her expression neutral. "If this is an attempt to claim innocence, you should save it for federal prosecutors." Adriana's smile turned genuine for a moment. "I am not claiming innocence. I am claiming intelligence. I saw where this was leading years ago. I prepared accordingly." She handed Emma a document. "That is a cooperation agreement, signed by me, witnessed by the Department of Justice. I have been providing evidence against my husband's organization for 18 months. Emma took the document carefully, keeping Adriana in her peripheral vision. Tom leaned over to read with her. The document appeared legitimate. DOJ letterhead, official signatures, detailed terms of cooperation and immunity. "Why show me this?" Emma asked. "Because you're about to take Josh Briggs into protective custody." Adriana's intelligence was clearly excellent. And because I want you to understand that my husband is about to lose everything. His organization, his freedom, his legacy, which makes him extremely dangerous. Emma handed the document back. I already knew he was dangerous. Not like this, Adriana said quietly. Christoph is a pragmatist. When he had something to lose, he calculated risks carefully. Now he has nothing left to lose. The trial will proceed with or without Josh Briggs' testimony because I have provided enough evidence to convict everyone. But Christoph does not know that yet. He believes eliminating Josh will save his empire. The lawyer spoke for the first time. Mr. Volkov has accessed offshore accounts totaling approximately $40 million. Money that was hidden from his organization, his partners, and law enforcement. He can use those funds without oversight or limitation. Emma understood the implication. $40 million could hire an army of contractors, could buy intelligence from corrupted officials, could fund an operation of almost unlimited scope. What do you want from me? Emma asked. Adriana's expression became intense. I want you to keep Josh Briggs alive until trial. Not because his testimony is legally necessary, but because if my husband succeeds in killing that young man, he will believe he can still win. He will escalate further. More witnesses will be targeted. More violence. I want this to end, Ms. Vance. Completely and finally. Tom spoke up. You are asking Emma to protect your husband's victim so your husband can be destroyed. That is cold. Adriana met his eyes without flinching. My husband trafficked weapons that killed hundreds of people. Innocent people. Children caught in crossfire. Police officers murdered by criminals using guns Christoph provided. So yes, I am cold about his fate. He earned what is coming. Emma studied Adriana carefully. The woman was angry, that was clear, but the anger was controlled. Focused. This was someone who had made peace with betraying her husband years ago. Someone who had calculated the cost and accepted it. Why tell me all this? Emma asked. Why not just let the FBI handle it? Because the FBI has a leak, Adriana said simply. Someone feeding information to Christoph. I do not know who, but I know it exists because Christoph knew about Josh's relocation within hours. She paused. You, however, are going off-grid. No official records. No bureaucratic trail. You're outside the compromise system. That makes you Josh's best chance. The lawyer produced another document. This is a letter from the DOJ confirming everything Mrs. Volkov has told you. Phone numbers you can call to verify. Official confirmation of her cooperation status. Emma took the letter but did not look at it yet. What else? Adriana reached into her jacket slowly, giving Emma time to react if necessary. She pulled out a thumb drive. This contains everything I know about Christoph's remaining resources. Safe houses he might use. Contractors he has worked with previously. Communication patterns. Financial accounts. Consider it intelligence support for your mission. Tom looked at Emma. This could be a trap. False information designed to lead you into an ambush. It could be. Emma agreed. She looked at Adriana. Why should I trust anything you are giving me? Adriana's voice was steady. Because I have already betrayed my husband completely. I have testified before a grand jury. I have provided evidence that will destroy him. What possible benefit would I gain from sabotaging your protection of Josh Briggs? She gestured to the documents. Everything I have given you can be verified through official channels. Make the calls. Confirm the details. Then decide. Emma pocketed the thumb drive. I will verify. And if any of this is false, I will assume everything else is compromised. Adriana nodded. Understood. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Ms. Vance. My husband knows who you are now. He has been researching you, learning about your methods, your history, your capabilities. He is not going to send ordinary contractors anymore. What is he going to send? Emma asked. Adriana's expression was grim. People like you. Former special operations. The best he can buy with $40 million. People who will not be intimidated by your reputation. People who will prepare specifically to counter your tactics. Emma felt a cold clarity settle over her. That is good to know. Adriana studied Emma for a long moment. You're not afraid. Emma's voice was flat. I stopped being afraid a long time ago. What I am is prepared. The lawyer handed Tom a business card. If you need to reach Mrs. Volkov for any reason, use this number. Secure line. She is fully committed to ensuring this trial succeeds. Tom took the card without comment. Adriana and her lawyer walked back to their sedan. No threats, no dramatic exits. Just professionals completing a transaction. The car pulled away smoothly. Derek emerged from the office where he had been watching through the window. Was that really Volkov's wife? Emma nodded, already pulling out her phone. She began making calls. First to Agent Torres, confirming Adriana's cooperation agreement. Then to the DOJ verification line on the letter. Every detail checked out. Adriana Volkov was exactly what she claimed to be. A woman who had turned against her criminal husband and was now providing everything she knew to destroy him. Tom sat on the office steps, processing. So we are protecting a witness who is legally unnecessary. And the man hunting him has $40 million and is about to hire elite operators. Tom looked at Emma. Does that change your decision? Emma finished her last verification call. It clarifies the mission parameters, makes threat assessment more accurate. But change my decision. She shook her head. No. Josh Briggs saw crimes and reported them. That took courage. He deserves protection regardless of whether his testimony is technically necessary for conviction. Derek was reading through the documents Adriana had provided. This intelligence is detailed. Safe houses across 3 states. Names of at least a dozen contractors. Financial routing information. If this is all accurate, it is a gold mine. Emma took the documents and began committing key details to memory. Information was only valuable if you could access it when needed. And where she was going, there would be no internet, no databases, no quick reference checks. Just her memory and tactical judgment. Tom stood up, his Marine bearing evident. When do we leave? Tomorrow night. Emma checked her watch. That gives us 24 hours to prepare. Get equipment. Brief Josh on the situation. Establish protocols. And me, Derek asked, what is my role while you were gone? Emma looked at him. You maintain visible presence here. Shoot at the range. Answer questions from law enforcement. Make it look like I am consulting remotely. Anyone watching needs to believe I am still in Montana. Accessible, predictable. Derek straightened. I can do that. How long will you be dark? 6 weeks. No contact except emergency radio checks at random intervals. Emma's tone was serious. If something happens and you do not hear from us, you tell Torres. Only Torres. Nobody else. Assume compromise if information leaks beyond that point. Derek nodded, understanding. Be careful out there. Both of you. Tom extended his hand to Derek. Take care of my range while I am gone. And if anyone comes asking about me or my son, you know nothing. Derek shook firmly. You have my word. Emma spent the rest of the afternoon preparing. Equipment lists, weapon checks, supply calculations, everything needed to sustain 3 people in wilderness for 6 weeks while maintaining combat readiness. It was complex logistics, but Emma had done similar planning dozens of times. As the sun set over the Montana mountains, Emma stood at the range looking at targets she had shot just days ago. The morning she had arrived seemed like months in the past. She had come here for peace, for quiet, for escape from a life of violence. Instead, she had found a mission, a purpose, a reminder that some skills were not meant to be retired. They were meant to be used to protect people who deserve protection. Tom joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He offered one to Emma. Tomorrow we disappear into the wilderness with my terrified son and wait for elite contractors to maybe find us. This is insane. Emma took the coffee. Yes, but it is also exactly the kind of mission I spent 20 years training to execute. Protect a high-value asset in a hostile environment against superior numbers. This is what I do. Tom sipped his coffee. You mean what you did? Past tense. Emma smiled slightly. Apparently not as past tense as I thought. They stood in comfortable silence as stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, Christoph Volkov was planning his next move. Hiring contractors, gathering intelligence, preparing to eliminate the witness who threatened his empire. And in a few hours, Emma Vance and Tom Briggs would take that witness into the Montana wilderness and disappear. No trail, no digital footprint, just skill, experience, and determination against money, resources, and desperation. The odds were not in their favor, but Emma had never needed favorable odds. She just needed a mission worth fighting for. And Josh Briggs, young man who had the courage to testify against criminals, was exactly that kind of mission. 4 weeks into the wilderness, Emma watched the sun rise from a rocky outcrop overlooking their camp. The Bob Marshall Wilderness stretched in every direction, 1,000,000 acres of pristine Montana backcountry. No roads, no cell towers, no civilization, just mountains, forests, and the three of them. Josh Briggs sat by the fire, nursing coffee. He was 26 years old, thin and nervous, with the haunted look of someone who had seen too much. The first week had been difficult. He had questioned everything. Why trust Emma? Why believe this would work? Why not just run and disappear completely? Then, 10 days in, they had encountered the first probe. 2 men, supposedly hikers, who had somehow ended up in one of the most remote sections of the wilderness. Emma had spotted them from a mile away. Wrong gear for the terrain. Too much interest in the cabin. Movement patterns that suggested tactical training. She had intercepted them before they got close. Polite but firm. Suggested they were lost and provided directions back to the nearest trailhead. The men had left, but Emma had tracked them for 6 miles to ensure they actually departed the area. That night, Josh had finally understood. These people would not stop. They would search every mile of wilderness if necessary. And Emma was the only thing standing between him and a bullet. Tom emerged from the cabin, rifle slung over his shoulder. His Marine training had returned quickly. He moved through the wilderness like he had never left it, reading terrain and weather with practiced ease. Morning patrol, he said to Emma. Standard route. Emma nodded. I will have eyes on you until you reach the ridge. Radio if you see anything unusual. Tom headed into the trees, disappearing within seconds. Emma had been impressed by how quickly he adapted. Most people his age would struggle with the physical demands of wilderness patrol. Tom had embraced it, grateful to be actively protecting his son rather than helplessly watching from a distance. Josh approached Emma at the overlook. How much longer do we have to stay out here? 2 weeks. Emma kept her eyes on the surrounding terrain. Trial starts in 12 days. You testify in 14. Once you're on that stand and your testimony is recorded, the tactical value of killing you drops significantly. But Volkov would still want revenge, Josh said quietly. Emma turned to look at him. Probably. But revenge is emotional. Preventing testimony is tactical. Tactical threats are more dangerous because they are calculated and resourced. Emotional threats are reactive and often poorly planned. Josh sat on a nearby rock. I never wanted any of this. I was just working warehouse security, trying to pay off student loans. Then I saw those weapons being loaded and everything changed. You did the right thing, Emma said. Reporting crime is not something to regret. Easy for you to say. Josh gestured around them. You are a trained operator. This is probably normal for you. I'm just a guy who made one decision and now spends his life running. Emma's voice was gentle but firm. Josh, I've spent 20 years making hard decisions. Some of them got people killed. Some of them saved lives. The difference between you and the people hunting you is that you chose to protect others even though it cost you everything. That is courage. Real courage. Not the Hollywood version. Josh looked at her with something approaching respect. Tom says you were a legend. The Ghost. Best SEAL sniper in a generation. Emma shrugged. I was good at a very specific set of skills. That does not make me special. What makes someone special is what they do when no one is watching and there is no reward for doing right. You reported those weapons knowing it would destroy your normal life. That is more impressive than anything I did in uniform. Before Josh could respond, Tom's voice came through the radio. Emma, I have movement. 3 individuals, 1 click north of the ridge. Tactical gear. Definitely not hikers. Emma was moving before the transmission ended. Josh, into the cabin. Lockdown protocol. Do not come out unless Tom or I come to the door and give the all-clear phrase. Josh ran for the cabin without argument. 4 weeks of training had taught him to trust Emma's commands completely. Emma grabbed her rifle and moved into the trees, flowing through the terrain like smoke. Years of practice made her nearly invisible even in daylight. She reached Tom's position in 4 minutes. He pointed north without speaking. Emma used her optic to scan. 3 men. Professional spacing. Quality equipment. They were searching systematically, not wandering. Someone had narrowed down the search area significantly. Tom whispered, "How would they find us?" Emma had been asking herself the same question. The helicopter drop had been secure. No flight plan filed. No communication since arrival except emergency radio checks at random times. Yet here were contractors searching the exact section of wilderness where they were hiding. She keyed her radio to the emergency frequency. "Torres, this is Ghost. We have compromise. 3 tangos conducting search pattern approximately 1 click from our position." "How is this possible?" Static for a moment, then Torres' voice came through. "Ghost, we had a federal marshal arrested yesterday. Internal Affairs discovered he was accessing witness protection files. He is in custody now, but he had access for weeks." Emma felt cold fury. He gave them the drop coordinates. Torres sounded grim. "Probably. We are scrambling extraction. Helicopter is 2 hours out. Can you evade until then?" Emma calculated. 3 contractors, difficult terrain, 2-hour window. Against most teams, she could evade indefinitely. But these were not ordinary contractors. Volkov had learned from his previous failures. He had hired people specifically capable of hunting someone like Emma. "We will manage," Emma transmitted. "Radio silence until extraction unless emergency." She switched frequencies back to local. "Tom, we are moving. New location. Lead Josh to Rally Point Bravo." Tom did not question. He moved back toward the cabin while Emma remained in position, watching the contractors. They were good. Very good. One of them was reading sign, tracking disturbances in the forest floor. Another was watching for tactical indicators, places where defensive positions would naturally form. The third was providing overwatch, rifle ready. Emma recognized the pattern. These were former military, probably special operations. The kind of people who had hunted high-value targets in mountains, just like these. Volkov had spent his money well. She watched them for another minute, memorizing movement patterns and communication signals. Then she began moving, staying parallel to their search path while heading toward the rally point. Tom and Josh would be there in 10 minutes. They needed to relocate before the contractors expanded their search radius. Emma reached the rally point first. It was a small clearing near a stream, chosen specifically because it offered multiple escape routes. Tom arrived 3 minutes later with Josh, both moving quietly and efficiently. "We have 2 hours until extraction," Emma said quietly. 3 contractors actively searching. They're skilled, probably Tier 1 experienced. Our advantage is we know this terrain better than they do. We spent 4 weeks learning every trail, every hiding spot, every choke point. Josh looked terrified but determined. "What do we do?" "We move to extraction point Charlie," Emma said. "It is 3 miles west. Hook terrain. They will have difficulty tracking us quickly." She looked at Tom. "You lead. I will follow at distance, covering our trail." Tom nodded. "Josh, stay close to me. Step where I step. Touch nothing you do not have to touch." They moved out, Tom setting a steady pace that balanced speed with stealth. Josh followed exactly as instructed, his fear channeled into focused obedience. Emma stayed 50 yards behind, erasing signs of their passage and watching for pursuit. The contractors were spreading their search pattern. Emma saw one of them move into a position that would intersect their original camp within 20 minutes. Good tactics. Cover the most likely hiding locations first. But Emma had anticipated exactly this response. Their gear was already packed. The camp showed no signs of long-term occupation. The contractors would find nothing useful. An hour into the movement, Emma spotted the drone. Small quadcopter, flying a search pattern over the forest canopy. Volkov had brought technology into the wilderness. Smart, expensive, and potentially very effective. She keyed her radio. "Tom, we have aerial observation. Drone, probably thermal equipped. We need to get under denser canopy." Tom adjusted course immediately. leading them into a section of old-growth forest where the tree cover was thick enough to block thermal signatures. The drone passed overhead twice, but did not linger. Emma began thinking tactically about the contractors. They had resources, technology, training, but they also had a disadvantage. They were hunting in unfamiliar terrain against someone who had spent a month preparing this exact ground for defense. Emma knew every draw, every ridge, every place where an ambush could be set. She made a decision. Tom, continue to extraction point. I'm going to slow them down. Emma, Tom's voice was concerned. You said we evade, not engage. We are evading, Emma replied. But evading successfully requires they lose our trail. I'm going to give them a different trail to follow. She moved away from Tom and Josh, deliberately leaving obvious signs. Broken branches, disturbed ground, the kind of trail someone in a hurry might leave. Then she doubled back, climbing into the rocks above the trail and waiting. The contractors found her false trail within 15 minutes. One of them knelt, examining the signs. He signaled to his team. They were following. Emma waited until they committed to the trail, then moved quietly in the opposite direction, rejoining Tom and Josh's path. By the time the contractors realized they were following a false trail, Emma was a mile away and approaching the extraction point. Tom and Josh were already there, concealed in thick brush, watching the sky for the helicopter. Emma settled into position next to them. Josh looked at her with wide eyes. You led them away from us. Basic misdirection, Emma said. They have resources, but they are operating on incomplete information. We use that against them. The sound of rotors came from the south. The helicopter was early. Emma scanned the perimeter one last time, ensuring no immediate threats. The bird came in fast and low, military pilot executing a tactical extraction. They were aboard in 30 seconds. The helicopter banked hard and accelerated away from the wilderness. Emma looked down at the forest disappearing below them. For weeks of isolation, 1 month of keeping Josh alive against determined opposition. The mission was not over yet, but this phase was complete. They had evaded, survived, and protected the witness. Tom put a hand on her shoulder. Thank you, he said simply. Emma nodded. 2 more weeks, she said. Get Josh to trial. Get him on the stand. Finish this. Josh was staring out the helicopter window, watching Montana wilderness fall away. When I testify, he said, I want to look Volkov's people in the eye. I want them to know they could not stop me, could not scare me into silence. Emma smiled. That is exactly what you're going to do. The federal courthouse in Helena was a fortress. Emma counted 6 sniper positions for security checkpoints and enough federal marshals to staff a small military base. Agent Torres had taken the threat seriously. No one was getting to Josh Briggs without going through layers of armed professionals. Emma stood in a secure room with Tom, watching Josh prepare for testimony through one-way glass. He wore a suit that Torres had provided. He looked older than his 26 years. The wilderness had changed him. Fear had been replaced by something harder, more determined. Derek entered the room, his presence authorized as part of Emma's security consultation team. He had maintained perfect operational security during their absence. As far as anyone watching knew, Emma had been consulting remotely from Montana the entire time. You look good, Derek said to Emma. Wilderness agreed with you. Emma smiled slightly. Clean air. No distractions. Plenty of time to think. It was almost pleasant except for the part where elite contractors were hunting us. Tom was watching his son through the glass. He's going to do well. For weeks ago, I was not sure, but now he shook his head. Now I think he is ready. Agent Wade joined them, holding a tablet. We just got word from Moscow. Christoph Volkov held a press conference. Claims he is innocent. Says the American justice system is persecuting him. Standard deflection. Is he watching the trial? Emma asked. Wade nodded, streaming it live. He wants to see Josh testify. Wants to see if his witness holds up under cross-examination. Emma understood. Volkov was looking for weakness. Any sign that Josh might recant or contradict himself. Even from Russia, he was still fighting. Torres entered, her expression grim. We have a situation. 3 individuals were detained trying to enter the courthouse with press credentials. Credentials were expertly forged. Background checks flagged them as possible foreign intelligence. Emma felt her tactical awareness spike. Volkov made one last attempt. Torres nodded. They are in custody now, but it confirms what we suspected. He is not giving up. Even here, even with this level of security, he is still trying. Derek spoke up. But Josh is safe now, right? I mean, once he testifies, it is over. Torres and Emma exchanged glances. It is never really over, Torres said. But yes, once testimony is recorded, the legal case proceeds with or without Josh. The tactical value of harming him drops significantly. The courtroom was called to order. On screens throughout the secure room, they watched Josh take the stand. He was sworn in. The prosecutor began with gentle questions, establishing Josh's background and employment history. Emma watched Josh's body language. Steady, calm. The young man who had been terrified in the wilderness was gone. In his place was someone who had found courage through adversity. The prosecutor displayed photographs on courtroom monitors. Can you identify what you saw being loaded at the warehouse, Mr. Briggs? Josh's voice was clear and strong. Military-grade weapons. AR-15 variants. Some appear to be fully automatic conversions. There were also crates marked with serial numbers that had been filed off or altered. And did you document what you saw? Yes. Josh pulled out his phone records, preserved as evidence. I took photographs, recorded license plates of vehicles involved, documented dates and times. The prosecutor continued methodically. Each question built the case brick by brick. Josh answered without hesitation. Emma could see the jury paying close attention. This was not some career criminal trading testimony for leniency. This was a civilian who had witnessed crimes and reported them at tremendous personal cost. Tom watched his son with obvious pride. That is my boy, he said quietly. The defense attorney began cross-examination. He was aggressive, trying to shake Josh's credibility. Suggested Josh had fabricated evidence. Implied he had ulterior motives. Josh held firm. Every attack was deflected with calm, consistent answers. Emma had seen this kind of testimony before. Witnesses who wilted under pressure and witnesses who strengthened. Josh was strengthening. Every question the defense asked gave him another opportunity to restate what he had seen, to reinforce the evidence. After 2 hours, the cross-examination ended. Josh was excused from the stand. The prosecutor rested the government's case. The defense would present their arguments, but the critical testimony was complete. Josh Briggs had told his story under oath, and it was devastating. Torres' phone rang. She stepped away to answer, then returned with an unexpected smile. That was the State Department. Christoph Volkov just had his Russian citizenship revoked. Apparently, Moscow decided he is more trouble than he is worth. He is being extradited within the week. Emma raised an eyebrow. That is unexpectedly efficient. Wade grinned. Turns out Adriana Volkov's cooperation included evidence of Christoph's financial crimes in Russia. He stole from oligarchs connected to the Kremlin. They do not forgive that. Russia is happy to send him back to face American justice. Derek let out a low whistle. So Volkov is going to trial after all. Torres nodded. The wife's betrayal was complete. She did not just provide evidence against his American operations. She destroyed his escape plan. Christoph Volkov will stand trial in the same courthouse where Josh testified. Emma felt a rare sense of satisfaction. Justice was often complicated, delayed, or incomplete. But in this case, the pieces were falling into perfect alignment. Josh had testified courageously. Volkov's organization was dismantled. The man himself would face accountability. Tom hugged his son when Josh emerged from the courtroom. 4 weeks of protection in wilderness. 6 weeks of living with constant fear. All of it culminating in this moment. Josh had done what criminals with $40 million could not prevent. Josh saw Emma and approached. I cannot have done that without you. Without what you taught me in the wilderness. Emma shook her head. I taught you survival skills. The courage was already inside you. You just needed circumstances that forced you to find it. Josh smiled. Still, thank you for everything. Derek stepped forward and shook Josh's hand. That was incredible to watch. You never wavered once. The prosecutor approached their group. Mr. Briggs, that was exceptional testimony. Clear, consistent, and credible. The jury believed every word. She looked at Emma. And Ms. Vance, your protection detail was exactly what we needed. Off the books, off the grid, and completely successful. Emma nodded acknowledgement. Will you need Josh for additional testimony when Volkov is extradited? Possibly, the prosecutor said, but he can testify remotely if necessary. The bulk of the case is already established. Adriana Volkov's evidence, combined with Josh's testimony, is overwhelming. Torres pulled Emma aside. We're going to keep Josh in protective custody for another 2 weeks. Just as a precaution. After that, he enters full witness protection with a new identity. New location. Complete restart. Emma understood. Josh's testimony was complete, but there were still people in Volkov's organization who might seek revenge. Better to ensure complete safety before allowing him to disappear into a new life. Tom joined them. What happens to the range now that this is over? Emma considered. You go back to running a business. I go back to quiet retirement. Derek continues his training. Life returns to normal. Tom smiled. Somehow I doubt your life will ever be completely normal again. The ghost is back in the world. People know you are here. Emma had been thinking about that. Her anonymity was destroyed. The news coverage of the trial mentioned her role. Social media had exploded with discussions of the legendary operator who had protected a witness in Montana wilderness. There would be consequences. Attention she did not want. Perhaps opportunities she had not considered. Derek approached. Emma, I have been thinking. You told me you might train me if the mission succeeded. Does the offer still stand? Emma looked at the young instructor who had started as an arrogant antagonist and had become a humble student. Yes, she said. The offer stands, but understand what you are asking for. Real training is not about looking tactical. It is about developing judgment, discipline, and the ability to make life or death decisions under pressure. Derek nodded seriously. I understand. I watch you work. I saw the difference between someone who talks about tactics and someone who lives them. I want to learn from that. Emma extended her hand. And we start next week. Be prepared to have everything you think you know challenged. Derek shook her hand firmly. I am ready. The group left the courthouse through a secure exit. Outside, reporters were waiting, but federal marshals kept them at distance. Emma, Tom, Josh, and Derek climbed into an unmarked vehicle that would take them to a safe location. As they drove through Helena, Josh looked out the window at the city passing by. This is the first time in weeks I have felt safe, he said quietly. Emma understood. The mission was complete. The testimony delivered. The threats significantly reduced. It was not perfect safety. That did not exist. But it was as close as they could achieve. Tom put his arm around his son. You did good, Josh. Better than good. You stood up when it mattered. Josh leaned against his father, exhaustion finally catching up with him. I just want to sleep for about a week. Emma smiled. That could be arranged. Derek was looking at his phone, reading news coverage of the trial. They are calling you a hero, he said to Emma. Articles about the ghost protecting the witness. People want interviews. Emma's expression was neutral. People will be disappointed. I do not do interviews. Torres, riding in the front passenger seat, turned around. You might have to do one. The media pressure is intense. Public interest is extraordinary. A brief statement might satisfy them. Emma considered. One statement, carefully worded. Then I disappear back into privacy. Torres nodded. I can arrange that. The vehicle arrived at a secure federal facility. Josh would stay here under protection until his final relocation. Tom would return to his range. Derek to his instruction. And Emma would finally return to the quiet life she had sought. Except now that life will be complicated by the fact that everyone knew where Emma Vance was. The legend had become public knowledge. The ghost was visible. As Emma said goodbye to Josh and Tom, she realized something fundamental had shifted. She had come out of retirement for one mission, to protect one witness. But in doing so, she had reminded herself why she had chosen this life in the first place. Some people had skills that were too valuable to waste, capabilities that were needed even if using them was dangerous. Emma had tried to walk away from that reality, But reality had other plans. The mission was complete. Josh was safe. Volkov would face justice. And Emma Vance, the ghost, was back in the world whether she wanted to be or not. 3 months after the trial, Emma stood at the Pine Ridge shooting range watching Derek run a group of students through tactical drills. He had improved dramatically. The arrogance was gone, replaced by methodical professionalism. He was learning to teach the way Emma had taught him, with patience, with precision, with emphasis on judgment over flash. Tom emerged from the office with 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing one to Emma. "Derek is doing well." Emma nodded. "He has potential. More importantly, he has humility. That combination is rare." They watched in comfortable silence as Derek corrected a student's stance. The range had changed since the confrontation. Better security, more cameras, enhanced protocols, but it still maintained the feel of a small-town shooting facility. Tom had resisted suggestions to turn it into a tactical training center. This was a place for families, hunters, and responsible gun owners, not a paramilitary compound. Emma's phone buzzed. A message from Agent Torres. Trial update. All 18 defendants convicted. Christoph Volkov sentenced to 25 years federal prison. Adriana Volkov entered full witness protection with new identity. Josh Briggs, living under new name in undisclosed location, enrolled in college. Reports he is doing well. Emma showed the message to Tom. He smiled. "Justice," he said simply. "Real justice." Emma pocketed her phone. The mission had concluded better than most. Josh was safe and rebuilding his life. Volkov was in prison where he belonged. The weapons trafficking organization was dismantled. Every objective achieved. Mike Chin's truck pulled into the parking lot. Emma had invited him to visit, partly for old times and partly to meet Derek. Mike emerged, wearing civilian clothes and his characteristic calm expression. When he saw Emma, his smile was genuine. "Ghost," he said, embracing her. "You caused quite a stir. Protecting witnesses. Evading contractors in the wilderness. The community has been talking about nothing else." Emma introduced Mike to Tom and Derek. Derek looked starstruck. "Mike Chun. The Mike Chun. I cannot believe I am actually meeting you." Mike laughed. "Derek, Emma tells me you have been training seriously. That you have learned some hard lessons about the difference between shooting and combat." Derek nodded earnestly. "She's been teaching me tactical thinking, decision-making under pressure, the mental aspects of operations that I never understood before." Mike looked at Emma with approval. "That is exactly what she taught me 20 years ago. The weapons and techniques change. The mental discipline is constant." He turned back to Derek. "You are lucky to have her as an instructor." They spent the afternoon shooting and talking. Mike shared stories from his current work training SEAL candidates. Emma listened, pleased to hear how her methods had become standard doctrine. The techniques she had developed through trial and error were now being taught to every sniper in the teams. As the sun began setting, they gathered in Tom's office. Mike pulled out a folder. "Emma, I came here with more than just social visit in mind." He opened the folder to reveal official documents. "The Navy wants to bring you back. Not active duty, consultant position, training advanced operators, developing new doctrine. You would have complete autonomy and significant resources." Emma read through the proposal. The offer was generous, respected her need for independence, provided meaningful work using her expertise. A year ago, she would have rejected it immediately, but 3 months of helping Derek had reminded her how much she valued teaching. "I will consider it," she said. "That is more than I would have said before this summer." Mike nodded understanding. "You proved something to yourself these past months. That retirement does not mean irrelevance. Your skills still matter. People still need what you can teach." Derek spoke up. "If you take that position, would you still work with me occasionally?" Emma looked at him. "Derek, you have learned the fundamentals. Now you need experience. Real scenarios. Decisions under pressure. I can provide guidance, but the rest is up to you." Tom stood and raised his coffee cup. "To teachers and students. To courage under fire. And to knowing the difference between looking dangerous and being effective." They clinked cups together. Emma felt something she had not experienced in years. Contentment. not the artificial peace of isolation. Real contentment that came from meaningful work and earned respect. Over the following weeks, Emma began consulting for the Navy remotely. She developed training protocols, reviewed tactical procedures, provided feedback on sniper doctrine evolution. It was fulfilling work that used her expertise without requiring active deployment. Derek continued advancing under her occasional guidance. He had started teaching more advanced courses at the range, incorporating the lessons Emma had taught him. Students noticed the difference. His instruction had depth now, substance beyond technique. Josh called Emma once, using a secure line Torres had arranged. He thanked her again, told her about his new life, college classes in engineering, friends who knew nothing about his past, a future that looked normal and safe. Emma listened, pleased that the mission had given this young man his life back. On a cold November morning, Emma returned to the range to find Derek working with a new student. She watched from a distance as he corrected the shooter's breathing, adjusted their stance, explained the mental preparation required for precision shooting. The student asked Derek where he learned these techniques. Derek smiled and pointed to where Emma stood watching. From a best, he said simply, from someone who spent 20 years perfecting these skills in conditions most of us cannot imagine. Emma approached and Derek introduced his student. Emma spent an hour working with them both, demonstrating advanced techniques and explaining the principles behind each movement. The student was attentive, grateful, clearly understanding they were receiving instruction from someone exceptional. After the session, Emma and Derek walked to the overlook where she had first faced down the contractors months ago. The memory felt distant now, a different chapter of her life. Derek broke the silence. "I owe you an apology," he said, "for that first day. The arrogance, the condescension. I was everything a professional should not be." Emma shook her head. "You were a student who did not know he was a student yet. Some lessons require humiliation before understanding. You learned. That is what matters." Derek smiled. "Mike told me something interesting. He said you turned down multiple offers to work for private security companies. Told them you only teach people who protect others, never people who work for the highest bidder." Emma watched the mountains in the distance. "Money creates bad incentives. I spent 20 years protecting people who could not protect themselves. I am not going to spend my retirement training people who work for criminals." "That is why people respect you," Derek said. "It is not just the skills. It is the character behind them." They stood in comfortable silence as the sun climbed higher. Tom joined them, carrying the now familiar coffee cups. "You two look philosophical," he observed. "Just reflecting," Emma said, "on how a quiet Saturday morning at a shooting range changed everything." Tom laughed. "You came here for peace and quiet. Instead, you got federal witnesses, arms traffickers, wilderness survival, and national media attention." Emma smiled. Life has a sense of irony. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Torres. "Thought you should know. Volkov tried to arrange a hit from prison. Federal marshals intercepted the communication. He is now in administrative segregation with no contact privileges. The threat is neutralized permanently." Emma showed the message to Tom and Derek. The final piece falling into place. Volkov had tried one last time and failed. Now he would spend decades in isolation, his empire destroyed, his wife turned against him, his freedom gone. Tom put his arm around Emma's shoulder. "You did good work, Ghost. Protected a witness. Taught a student. Reminded the world that honor and skill still matter." Emma looked at the range, where students were now arriving for morning practice. This place had changed her life, pulled her back from isolation, given her purpose again. She had tried to retire from protecting people. But protecting people, she had learned, was not something you retired from. It was something you did because it needed to be done. Derek's phone rang. He answered, listened, then looked at Emma with excitement. That was the state police tactical team. They want me to guest instruct on advanced marksmanship. They specifically requested that I teach the methods Emma Vance showed me. Emma nodded approval. Then you show them. You pass on what you learned. That is how knowledge survives. Through students who become teachers. As the morning progressed, Emma worked with several shooters. Correcting form. Explaining technique. Answering questions. It felt right. Natural. This was her purpose now. Not active operations. Not hunting enemies. Teaching the next generation to be better, smarter, more ethical operators. Tom pulled her aside before lunch. I have been thinking. The range could expand. Offer more advanced courses. Tactical training. Cruz Carter Combat. All taught with the discipline and ethics you represent. You interested in being a permanent partner? Emma considered the offer. Permanent partnership. Commitment to this place and these people. It was the opposite of the solitary retirement she had planned. But it was also exactly what she had discovered she needed. Yes, she said. I am interested. Tom extended his hand. Partners then. The range gets your expertise. You get a platform to teach the right way. They shook on it. Derek hooped and hugged them both. The three of them stood together, looking out over the range that had become so much more than a business. It was a place where skills were taught with wisdom, where students learned that being dangerous meant having the judgment to use force only when necessary. Emma thought about the journey from that first morning, the arrogant instructor who challenged her, the federal witness who needed protection, the wilderness mission that tested everything she knew, the trial that brought justice, and finally this, a new chapter, teaching, building, creating the next generation of protectors. Mike had been right. Retirement did not mean irrelevance. It meant finding new ways to use hard-won knowledge. Emma Vance, the ghost, was no longer invisible. She was exactly where she needed to be, training students who would carry forward the lessons of discipline, ethics, and skill. The range filled with the sounds of controlled fire, students improving, teachers guiding, a community of people who understood that with great skill came great responsibility. Emma picked up her rifle and moved to her favorite lane. She chambered around, found her natural respiratory pause, and fired. Perfect center mass. Always center mass. Some things never changed. Derek joined her, setting up at the next lane. Ready to learn something new today, he asked. Emma smiled. Always. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop being effective. They shot together as the Montana sun climbed higher, teacher and student, both understanding that the greatest legacy was not what you accomplished, but who you taught to carry the mission forward after you were gone. And somewhere, in a college classroom in a city whose name Emma would never know, Josh Briggs was building a new life. Free from fear, safe from those who had hunted him, living proof that courage could triumph over money and violence. The mission was complete. The student had become a teacher, and the ghost had found her purpose again, not in shadows and silence, but in daylight and community, teaching the next generation that being a warrior meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. Emma Vance was home,